autobiography. One writer said of him, he has a brain the size of Kent. And in my view, he should be displayed in the Millennium Dome as a national treasure. Ladies and gentlemen, Stephen Fry. Oh, well, I was actually reading about you. The only thing that I can find to disapprove of with you, Stephen Fry, is that you actually want to be a member of MCC. I cannot believe that you want to join this establishment.
It's a working man's club, isn't it? No, well, like you, I love cricket, and it's such a good way of getting to see it. Also, if you like the British character, it's a very good way of seeing it up close. There are some weird creatures under the stones of the Marylebone Cricket Club.
I certainly are.
I was there, in fact, a couple of years ago, and a friend of mine, who at the time was president of the MCC, introduced me with great relish to Field Marshal Bramwell, who said, "I've got a bone to pick with you, young man." And it turned out that in my first novel, I'd written a character called Colonel Bramwell. And you know how it is when you think up character names. You don't know where they come from.
Sure.
And I was convinced I'd made it up. I put in another character called Yannick Noah, thinking I'd made that up. He was an international tennis player. You know, you just think... nowadays I just stick to villages in Norfolk. It's safest. You know. But, exactly. And unfortunately, this subject of this Colonel Bramwell in the book, The Liar, was... someone that worked for the household brigade of near Buckingham Palace, and in the 50s, it's not really your world, but in the 50s and 60s, if young, adventurous, amorous men who were not as other girls wanted a bit of sport, it was said that you could find a guardsman in the bushes of St James's Park for 5 shillings and pleasure and his bearskin, or his very bearskin, in fact. And anyway, so I wrote about this kind of thing and mentioned this Colonel Bramwell. And so when I met Field Marshal Bramwell, he'd read the book, was staring at me with wild eyes, and I thought he was going to get me, you know, to peel potatoes for 4 years or something awful, snip my buttons off and break my sword over his knee. But he warmed up, he was very sweet, and actually what he said was, he told me a story which I thought was just such a fantastic contrast to politics today. It was about Churchill. He said Churchill was woken up one Sunday morning when he was Prime Minister in the 50s again, by a private secretary who was rather worried and said, "I'm afraid there's some rather bad news, Prime Minister." He said, "What is it? War? We've lost Somalia. What is it?" He said, no, it's one of our backbench MPs, one of our squires from the Shires, unfortunately was arrested last night in St James's Park with a guardsman, a guardee. And sadly, it's in the News of the World, the early editions. I'm afraid there's going to be a bit of a stink about it. Churchill said, "Last night?" He said, "Yes. Yes, Prime Minister. It was very cold last night, wasn't it?" And the secretary said, yes. In fact, I believe it was the coldest February night for 17 years. And there was a slight pause, and Churchill said, "Makes you proud to be British." I think we could do with a bit of that in our politics. The wider, larger view.
Let's talk about, people always talk to you about things that you're good at. So let's talk about things that you're bad at. I mean, that's a far more interesting area of discussion. I mean, what is it you can't do? You're no good at sport, are you? You love sport. You mentioned cricket.
Now I do. My entire school days were made a living hell by trying to avoid sport. I loathed it. I thought that they were mud-spattered barbarians who had some ghastly key to puberty and growing hairs in unlikely places, and I was this weak, thin, can you imagine it? I'm now currently developing myself for digital widescreen, but at the time I was very, very thin, and I was just hopeless, and I wasn't bulging in the right places at all, and I just felt absolutely ghastly. The showers was just, I mean, every morning I would wake up with a sort of hot lead leaking into my stomach of fear, knowing that it was a games day and I was going to have to devote more energy than I would ever devote on a rugby field to getting out of sport. I just hated it. Absolutely despised it. Everything to do with it. The smell of it, the sight of it. And, you know, I know many other people who felt the same. Fortunately, I had some devil in me that managed to take the offensive. Rather, I wouldn't allow myself to be a weed. So I would sort of, if it was cricket, I would lie on the field, you know, with a limp-bound copy of the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam and say, "Wait a minute, girls, I'm just coming to the last verse. I can't possibly catch balls at the moment." But I mean, it was very hard, and if bullied, I was able to have the line, "No, don't beat me up, I'll just get an erection. Don't." Which I would recommend to anybody out there who is being threatened by bullies. That is it's a very good line. It works every time. But the other thing was
That's wonderful. The use of words as a sword.
Yeah, yeah, it can come back to those. Late Fry, really, sir? So am I. It's the other one. I used to annoy them. Don't be clever, Fry. All right, sir. How stupid would you like me to be? Would you like But no, I was a very irritating little cuss. The other thing that really drove me mad was music. I love music. It dwelt within me, but it could find no way out. I mean, and it's true to this day. I hear tunes brilliantly. I've not got a, I'm not tone deaf. I'm definitely tone dumb. If it's an average thing, for some reason people of our age sit around and say, "Oh, what was the theme tune to the Champions again, or the Persuaders?" And I'll have it in my head perfectly, and I'll make a noise, and everyone will turn and stare at me as if I've just farted in Queen Mother's face. Just the most awful kind of. And obviously it all comes out as one note, as a one awfully fat note, whereas in my head it's a beautiful symphony.
And yet you have sung, haven't you? You did sing with Hugh Laurie.
I did, with my colleague Hugh. I had to go and see a hypnotist first.
Did you?
Yeah, I mean, seriously. It was that programme that Lee just mentioned, Friday Night Live, and it was live, and so this sketch that Hugh and I had written, it did involve me singing, as Bishop, I think it was something. I in rehearsal, would say, and we'll come to the singing bit, and he would go, well, you've really got to do it. It's only a verse. And he knew that I was nervous about it. And I can sing a bit in the shower. It's only if I think that anybody in the next county might vaguely be listening. And so I thought, well, I'll go and see a hypnotist. It's the only answer. So I went to see this chap who was pleasingly Hungarian. And it was literally just the Yellow Pages. And he was just off Regent Street somewhere. And he said, what is your problem? And expecting smoking or irresistible impulse to cut people's buttocks in the tubes or something like that. But I said, well, I need to sing. He said, yeah. And I explained it was on television. And so he put me into a trance. And it really did work. He said, put your hands on your knees and feel your hands melt into your knees. And he had this fantastic, he sounded like George Schulte. It was brilliant kind of voice, that just made you kind of instantly just fall away. It was brilliant. Hey, my voice, nothing but my voice, And it was just great. And it was like being lowered down a well, just the very, very top. You felt that there was a rope keeping you from actually falling into complete unconsciousness. And he told me that, he said, now what is the cue? What is the cue that will make you sing? Unfortunately, it was the words, hit it, bitch. He would go, hit it, bitch, and I would have to start singing. So he said, with admirable composure, as far as I can remember, he said, when you hear the words, hit it, bitch. So it would be as if you're alone in your bathroom and you will sing, and it should be fantastic, and you'll be relaxed, and there'll be no nerves and no sweating, and your voice will not tighten, and all the things that happen. And sure enough, it seemed to go all right. I mean, I haven't seen a tape of it, but nobody complained or threw anything. And then it was only when sitting afterwards that I realised, of course, I'd have to go and see him again every time I want to sing, or someone in Hugh's voice is going to have to say, hit it, bitch. I don't know if that works anymore.
What about, we're talking there to Lee about going to America and making movies. You've done that. In fact, you've just made a movie with John Travolta.
Yes, yeah. Well, I mean, everything Lee said about the peculiarity of what they call the trailer queen, these extraordinary caravans that the stars have, don't they? I mean, they're not just caravans, they have little frontages, and the one that John Travolta had, I mean, terribly nice man, it's as much that they're agents and managers who insist on these.
There's also a lot of competition between...
Huge. I mean,
well, somebody will walk in your train and go, oh my God, he's got a TV.
Yeah,
and then it'd be, I didn't know.
I've got a Laserdisc, but you've got a DVD player. How do you get a DVD player?
Yeah,
and
that's
really
right.
kind of, it gets absurd. You've got two telephone lines, one for fax, one for...
You can have mine. I'd say you can have mine.
Exactly.
Have mine, do you? I don't want it,
Well, one of the saddest stories ever told was about Peter Sellers. I'm sure we all agree, but it's just so melancholy. It was Alec Guinness just found him when they were working on a film together, measuring Alec Guinness's trailer. I mean, literally. Yeah, I mean, it's so sad. And with Travolta, it was known as JTville. It was this city. He had just had with these sort of golf caddies lined up outside. He had a kitchen trailer, and I mean, bless him. I mean, everybody likes him. He's a very likable man, and I think Americans particularly enjoy the fact that he came back. Having been a bit of a joke in the mid '80s with Look Who's Talking 3 and all those sort of things. And suddenly with Pulp Fiction, and so whenever he went around and when we did street scenes or something, people were going, "Way to go, John!" They really kind of related to him, as it were. And he was very sweet. He shook them, pumped them by the hand.
That happened to Christopher Walken. I was working with him. He'd have people run up to him and go, "Man, I was with you in Nam, man." I had the gun to my head.
This, all that stuff.
And it was like, it was a film. It was Deer Hunter. And he was going, "No, I wasn't actually in Nam." And he went, "I was with you, man."
Put that watch up his ass. The twitching mouth of Christopher Walken, I think, is a whole subject in itself, isn't it? But I had the great pleasure of doing a scene where I was sort of torn apart. I play a witness in this film. I was torn apart with Robert Duvall, who I think is one of the finest film actors alive. And I'd been scared. Kenneth Branagh had told me, done a film with him, and said, I ought to warn you, he doesn't set much store by faggoty English old, minces, like Shakespeare. I thought, oh my God, I really thought I was going to get punched, because sort of, and so like you, for the first sort of 2 days, I did not dare speak to him. And then through very good fortune, I had to improvise a scene because there wasn't enough dialogue, and it was to cover while some camera was moving. I was supposed to be giving this expert testimony to the jury. And, of course, Americans are sort of obsessed by the fact that if you have an English accent and can hit a mark twice in a row and remember your lines. Have you done Shakespeare? I mean, they really are. They do think,
that's right.
But and they expect that. They expect English people to do that, but they don't expect improvisation. I was talking drivel. I mean, absolute drivel. I'm supposed to be a geologist, and I was saying to the jury, if water follows gravity. If you want to find out why a course goes where it does, it's going to gravity. If you throw, for example, your wife in the air, she falls downwards. And it's just getting more and more stupid like that. And he called in his girlfriend to watch. He said, I didn't know you guys did improv, And so it was great. And then, of course, he wanted to talk about sport all the time, which is fortunately, because the corollary of my dislike of sport was that I now, of course, am punishing that little child I once was by adoring sport and staying up to all.
Who would you like to be, you see, if you could actually be? Would it be a sportsman?
Undoubtedly. I mean, if one says what one really, really wants is the things one fantasizes to oneself when one drops off to sleep, then it would be, I suppose, my generation, it would be in both of them. I mean, that to me is just the height of what a human being can be. And I know it's absurd. You flower as a sportsman. I mean, it is to many people absurd. But I just think there's something so glorious about it. It's so supreme and so unquestionable. If a wicket is knocked down, it's knocked down. If a ball goes over the boundary rope, it goes over the boundary rope. You don't get people going around saying, did it work for you? I don't know. There's sort of awful scum who appear at late nights on BBC Two. It seems to me there's a sense in which, bugger off. I mean, it's so irritating. It's just... it's just so clear and absolute sport in that respect, and so theatrical.
I think that's right. It is the honesty of sport in that sense on the field. I mean, you can't tell lies out there. You can tell an awful lot about a person by watching them play any sport, actually. Yeah. You actually, at the end of a game, know what kind of person they are, don't you?
That's right. And I'm afraid, to my shame, I mean, I adore the minority sports, indoor bowls, no, really. Darts. Did you watch the darts this just a few weeks ago? I mean, fantastic. One of the greatest darts champions from the lakeside.
What about that woman then? I don't know if you've ever seen the gymnastics.
Yeah.
But there's like this woman, she's got this like ribbon. And she...
Can you do it?
She sort of does this, really. It's sort of... on this like huge immense floor. And it's like your mum pissed at Christmas. so what kind of personality can you...
Well, you're right, you see. I think the distinction to be drawn is between sport and games. I like games.
Oh, games.
And I think, so the Olympics are not particularly my thing, but I agree, I mean, the ribbon thing.
What is that?
It also looks so sort of, kind of Stalinist, doesn't it? Youth proudly, with ribbons. It's horrible business.
You're off to LA next week, aren't you? The 24th of January it is, that you go to, because you're up for a Golden Globe Award.
I am, yes.
For your portrayal of Oscar Wilde. I thought it was a wonderful piece. It really was. It was marvellous.
No.
But it was, and then you're up for Best Actor. You got some opposition.
Yes, Tom Hanks and Jim Carrey and Nick Nolte and Serena McKellen, but it'll be exciting to have one's little tiny moment in the sun, because I know perfectly well that 5 minutes after the thing's announced, I'll suddenly be swept up with the cigarette butts. You are forgotten. But just while you're still a nominee, people, I've got sent endless numbers of bunches of flowers from studios and things just for being nominated, because Americans do love people just for that moment. But the moment it goes, and the winner is Mr. Tom Hanks, it's suddenly, sorry, do I know you? And that's fine, as long as you're expecting it.
Well, it might not happen.
No, and apart from anything else, it is. I still get that little kick when introduced to a Meryl Streep or something like that. It's very hard to lose that, don't you think? I mean,
very much so. I mean, it's like. You see them on the screen and you kind of meet them and stuff. It really does take you back.
Yeah.
How do you feel about Robert Lindsay?
Oh,
what?
They don't come any better.
They don't, do they?
We call him the governor.
We call him the governor.
The governor.
All right. Well, let's get the governor. Stephen Fry for the moment. Thank you very much indeed, Stephen Fry.
Thank you.
job.